Jawn Suzuki, you are a 32-year-old tattoo artist based in Denver, Colorado.
Yes. My first tattoo, I thought okay, let's get something non-visible. It says Faith, and I got it because this hot dude had it on his ribs, and I was like, I want that tattoo, but I don't want it visible, so I put it on the inside of my mouth. I was adopted from Japan. My parents were offered actually a different child, and last minute their mom took them back.
I mean, good for that child.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my ex had been fighting a bunch, and he came out for me out of frustration. He was just like, you need to do it. And I just kept saying, no.
How did your parents react to all this news?
Oh, we didn't talk for a year after that. I chose to love myself more than I chose to love the approval of my parents. So I love Coke, not gonna lie about that, and I love ecstasy. And so the first 2 months was really hard because my body was coming off of the drugs and the alcohol and all these things. And I remember crying when I hit 30 days because I was only aiming for 30 days. I want to go out and get drunk, and I want to go do Coke in the bathroom. And then I cried because I realized that's not how we should be celebrating this.
Hello, Jawn. Hi. Welcome to Happy Hour. Do you want to tell the listeners how we got connected?
So I was on TikTok and I found you through that. You're interviewing, what's his name? Danny.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is such a great interview. I haven't found someone that does something like this, especially with AAPI people of my community. So it was just such a cool thing to see. And I reached out to you and I was like, hey, are you interested in at all interviewing some of the tattoos?
Yeah, and it's so interesting because none of my TikToks performed well before that episode came out. I mean, I had one or two that got a couple thousand, but especially now on social media, it's so oversaturated with content. And I always felt when I restarted this podcast, I feel I'm late into the content game. It's I'm going to be buried in so much content. It's going to be so hard to find stuff. And I've been getting, and I got hundreds of views, and it just was very discouraging to see. It's I'd put out this elaborate trailer and 200 people watch, but the consistency does pay off. And that trailer, it performed really, really well across platforms.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple people have told me that they found me through TikTok, and it's a phrase that I never thought I would hear about myself, So I'm really glad that trailer, prompted you to reach out to me, because that is just so crazy for me to even think about. Because guys, so Jawn is based in Denver, Colorado. So he actually flew all the way here to LA to do the interview with me. No, I'm kidding. He's here for the Blackpink concert. Which it's happening tonight, and I hope you have so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, this is so crazy. I feel just for anyone who wants to start doing a project or anything, I think Happy Hour has really just reminded me that, oh my gosh, just you reaching out to someone could mean the biggest thing ever. And now we're having a conversation on the same couch.
And I think going on to what you were saying earlier of I've been in my industry for 10 plus years at this point, and I didn't have TikTok when I was first getting into it. Instagram really wasn't a thing. It was really you had to walk in, you looked at someone's book on a counter. So going to something like this where you're reaching a lot more people than I'm reaching in a certain space, and I'm reaching a lot more people than you in a certain space. I think coming together and finding ways for us to both connect with all of these people is just such a great thing.
Yeah. And it's been so fun doing the pod. I've just been meeting amazing people. I've been meeting, so I have now connected with a tattoo artist. I met with a potter. I met with models who work in the content creation industry, and I caught up with my high school friend, and it's just been so fun because I love talking. This is the perfect place to do that. Well, welcome to Happy Hour, Jawn.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Your name is spelled Jawn, not John.
Yeah.
Was that name assigned to you?
So this is also a long story. So when I first got into tattooing, I was still going to college, and I didn't really want my family to find me on Facebook or anything like that. but I also wanted to go by my same name. So my legal name is John. I switched it so no one could look me up. It was just a way for me to keep my same name, but also keep like the anonymity of like, nobody finding me that's related to me.
Did you want to hide your career from them?
Yeah, so I actually hid my career from them till I was like 25.
And you started when you were like 18 or 19?
Yeah, when I was like 19, I got into the industry. Yeah, it was wild.
You were living a Hannah Montana life.
I was. It's so bizarre, but like I was dating someone at that time, so I wasn't living at home. And I was kind of going to school, trying to tattoo, but like I was literally doing it because it was like the cool thing to do, and I just wasn't super popular in like high school. So I was like, oh, now people like me and things like that. But I was also like I also drew all my life, and I got into reasons other than that, but like that was a big reason. And so I was telling them I was going to college, which I was, but also I was doing this side gig, and I was forced to pick at some point, and I picked tattooing over school. Yeah.
Okay, that's a little teaser on what we'll talk about more as we dive into this conversation, but a little intro about you. So Jawn Suzuki, you are a 32-year-old tattoo artist based in Denver, Colorado.
Yes.
You've been tattooing, like you said, for over 10 years, and you coin your style as very artistic, illustrative, very big pieces. Are these your own pieces that you've tattooed or other people?
No, I have good friends that I get stuff done, or like random people that I just really love their art.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do a lot of like sleeve work and like big pieces that like take a good amount of time, like at least 3, 4, 5 sessions of like 8-hour days. So it's very like time consuming, definitely tiresome for both of us, but I enjoy doing that because you get to kind of see the progression. Like you're not kind of doing one thing and then forgetting about it. I started tattooing because I loved painting.
You grew up painting as a kid.
Yeah. So like it's kind of like the whole painting process of like, you can take like 40 hours on something and it turn out beautiful, but also like I didn't like that you could spend 100 hours on a painting, and so translating that into a tattoo where you kind of the skin like stops you, the people stop you, you just kind of reach a limit with what you can actually do with skin. I learned that like,
and sometimes limitations are better.
Yes, because you have to walk away. You don't have just like a canvas you can keep touching, Yeah, so it kind of forced me to just throw up my hands and be like, this is the best I can do.
I learned that, first of all, you grew up in Hawaii. And you got your first ever tattoo at 18. I think you know where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to people what happened there?
I totally forgot that we talked about this. So my first tattoo, I thought like, okay, like let's get something non-visible and things like that. So it's on the inside of my mouth, and it says Faith, and I got it because this hot dude had it on his ribs, and I was like, okay, like I want that tattoo, but like I don't want it visible, so I put it on the inside of my mouth, which is now just so stupid to like say out loud, but
is it like here?
It's like right down there.
Oh, it's still there.
Yeah. The guy did a great job.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you regret that decision or?
No, I think it was just one of those things of like, if I didn't get it and if I didn't like go and get this like one small thing that I was like, oh, I can like hide this, and like I felt kind of alive for the first time, I guess I should say. Like I would never have like taken those steps to actually want a tattoo or start to tattoo, It was just kind of like a jumping off point of like, I can do this. I can, at that point in my life, like hide it as well. So, it's like
a little secret that you keep to yourself.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I know a lot of Asian kids or just kids in general just have to like kind of hide huge parts of their lives, especially growing up, and I was also gay, and my parents, we never talked about that until I was also 25. So like, it was just,
we gotta talk about that year 25.
Yeah, that was a big year. I will say to that point, most of it I didn't tell my parents. My ex told my parents for me, which was also very traumatic in a very different way.
Behind your back?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think I don't blame them. I think that everyone needs to come out on their own time, and I think I just kept making excuses for myself of why I didn't want to do it. So I don't blame him. Like, I think everything happens for a reason. I think that, like, that was the way I was supposed to come out. Yeah, it was just one of those things that took me a long time to realize, like, okay, like, I don't think I would have done it if he didn't do it for me. Yeah.
So you would say that you forgive him as a person, or?
Yeah, just, I mean, we were in an 8-year relationship. It was great and tumultuous, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think that, like, I have no hard feelings. I can't. Oh. No, you're totally fine. I'm so sorry.
No worries. I'll be back.
Thank you. Okay, so we also have a dog in this interview. His name is Milo. My last interview, I also had a dog.
Milo.
This dog is very big.
Sorry, let me give him a snack. Maybe he'll calm down.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, he's good. He's good.
Okay. Got a little excited.
I forgot what we were talking about, to be completely honest.
Your 8-year relationship.
Oh yeah, you know, like we ended on not great terms, but it's one of those things of like I held nothing against him, and I think that like we were just kids, you know, and I think he did what he thought he needed to do at that moment, and I did what I thought I needed to do, and there's nothing else we could have done better or worse. I think it just was meant to happen that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes it so exciting to have you on Happy Hour is that myself, I don't have any tattoos. And so this feels to me like a little out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think if I were to ever have a tattoo, I think what appeals to me aesthetically by default are those, you know, little dainty hand stick and poke tattoos. Hand poke tattoos.
Fine line tattoos.
Yeah, the fine line tattoos. And I feel like a lot of people in my demographic, they gravitate towards that too. Like the fine line tattoos that you see on the insides of people's wrists. And so that to me, I was like, okay, if I were to get a tattoo, that to me is what a tattoo should look like. So this is very different. But your work still made me very curious.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I really wanted to still get to know you more. And because your pieces are very elaborate. And in general for tattoos, there is no room for error, I suppose, or maybe there is, and you're just making it a very, you know, you're very skilled at masking it. I mean, you've come a long way. I remember you were telling me about how your first ever apprenticeship at 19, you actually got fired.
Yeah.
So tell us.
Oh,
how that
God.
happened.
Okay, I want to touch on something you said earlier of like how I think being a tattoo artist, you're going to make mistakes. It's human error. I think the best thing to do, or the best artists in the world, can hide it. You know what I mean? Of like, that's the point of tattooing. It's not to make a perfect tattoo. It's to make it look like it was a perfect tattoo. Also, I have done all the fine line stuff. I've done every single style imaginable on the planet Earth. And so, like, I've actually
experimented with different styles before landing on.
Yeah, especially like in Denver when I first moved there, I knew what made money and fine line was it. So I did it for like, I was known in Denver for like 3 years. And then I just decided like, this is not fulfilling me artistically. I want to get back to what I want to do. Yeah, so to the apprenticeship part. So I got into my apprenticeship when I was still going to college, and I got into it for so many reasons. I think the top two that are sticking out to me is because I thought it was the coolest thing to do, you know, and also the part of like, I was painting and I didn't like the process of how I could just never be done with it. So those are just the top two reasons I got into it. When I got into it, I had 2 tattoos at that point. I think I had like the inside of my mouth and my ribs done. And I just brought in my drawing book and I was like, hey, are you guys looking for an apprenticeship or an apprentice? And they were like, yeah, like, can you start after seeing my drawing book? They're like, hey, can you start tomorrow? And I was like, okay, cool. So I kind of got into it super easily, where a lot of people I know have a really rough time getting into tattooing because it's so niche and everyone's very protective of the industry and they don't want just like anyone random coming in.
Yeah. And for context, this is in Hawaii?
Yes. Yeah. And so I kind of got in there and I started at this really small like street shop that was known for their piercings more than their tattoos. And their piercings were like $20. So everyone just kind of walked in the door, they got a piercing and they were like, oh, maybe I'll get a tattoo. And that was so good for the beginning of my career because I found out I could do everything, you know, and I had to do everything. But about a year in, I just didn't care about it. I think my priorities were shifted more on being cool instead of actually doing the work. And so I think they realized that and was like, hey, we have to let you go. That was like the darkest, probably like 8-9 months of my life. No, I shouldn't say that. Second darkest. I had a darker one, but I kind of felt like I had no purpose in life. You know, I was going to school still and I hated
biochem,
it.
right?
Yes, for biochem in Hawaii, and I hated it. Like, it was just one of those things of like, now going to therapy, I realized I got heavily bullied in high school because I was gay. And so any school after that was so triggering that I just didn't want to be there so badly. And so college was the same thing, you know, where it still felt like these kids from high school that I knew were going to this college, and it still kind of felt like high school. I just knew I didn't want that, and I knew I didn't want to be sitting in an office 12 hours a day doing research about stuff and never getting the human connection that I wanted. So about a year later, they said if I worked a convention as like the front desk boy, they said they'll offer me my apprenticeship back, and I took it and I ran with it, and here we are today.
Now 10 years now, from when you first started, you work out at a tattoo studio called Rainbow Demon in Denver. So how did that happen?
When I came to Denver, I worked at a shop called All Sacred, and Aries, the person that owns it, runs such a tight shop, and it's very like, if you've ever heard of like a shop called like Bang Bang out in NYC, it's very like, everyone there is really good. They run a tight ship. Like, the name is really well known. And I just kind of realized I didn't fit into that because I just kind of wanted to do my own thing and live my life, you know? And so I left that. And I worked at a place called Illuminati, which was like basically shipping containers in this giant skate park, and it was like the coolest place to be. But
Is this in Denver?
Yeah, it's in Denver. And I was just working alone though. Like, in these shipping containers, I like hardly had someone that was like working next to me, so I was working alone most days.
Yeah.
That was hard for me. So I wanted to go back to a shop that kind of felt like an old school shop, but without like the misogyny and without the homophobia and without, you know, all these horror stories you hear about these old school tattoo shops about like making girls uncomfortable and like doing drugs in the bathroom. Like, I didn't want any of that. So, but I still wanted that feeling of like being in an old school shop.
Yeah.
So I found Rainbow Demon, who's owned by David Robinson, who's like a great guy, great friend, and I'm just very content and very happy there.
Tell me about the tattoo industry in general, because you said that it could be a very misogynistic, homophobic place. Like, how have you seen it evolved over the years and also at the places that you've worked at?
Absolutely. I think I might have a skewed opinion about this though, because I came from Hawaii, where most people are of some type of Asian descent, or they're like everyone's friends with someone that's Asian. Like, it wasn't a big thing for me. So when I got in there, I was so scared that nobody looked like me, nobody like was gay like I was, that I knew. And it was just one of those things of like, I just wanted to do this for myself. And so when I like finally got into the industry, it was hard. I just couldn't look up to anyone that really looked or felt like me. There was not many like female tattooers in Hawaii that were like killing it, you know. And I mean, there were some for sure. I'm not discrediting anyone. Let me just throw that out there. I just think that like it was so male dominated. And even going into Denver, it's so white male dominated. And it even like the female tattooers that are like trying to create spaces there often get like overlooked, or like they get talking down to and things like that. And like these guys don't even understand it, or they don't even know, but I hear it from like the female perspective of like, oh god, this like my really good friend who's a really good tattooer just doesn't see me as his equal. And that's just kind of very difficult for me to hear, because I already know that I feel it as a gay Asian man, you know? And so like the industry is still pretty misogynistic. It's gotten so much better over the years, obviously, but I think like something so deep rooted doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of still there. And I will say, like, all the people that I love and work with and verbally tell, like, I love you to, like, they're great people. They have never treated me that way. But yeah, you just kind of avoid those people and you just kind of like do your work and you live your life. You learn who to avoid and who not to avoid.
In terms of getting your license, I mean, just how does one obtain a tattoo license? Like, how do you receive training as a tattoo artist? Because you're working on skin, or when you're training, do you not work on skin?
You don't. You can work on like pig skin or fruits or fake skin, which is just like really thick plastic.
Did you say pig skin?
Yeah.
Interesting. So it'd be like these sheets of pig skin?
It's basically like cut off of a pig and like you're just kind of like laying it on the table and you're just kind of tattooing it.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard of that.
Yeah.
And fruit skin too.
Yeah, things like oranges, bananas, you know, grapefruit, they all work really well because they're, especially like the shapes of it is like more similar to someone's body and they're very porous. So you can see how each like line will go through like a very specific part of like a skin thing, you know?
Okay, so you moved to Colorado
Yeah.
from Hawaii. And I think in my perspective, if I'm like putting myself in the shoes of a young tattoo artist,
Yeah.
a fledgling tattoo artist who wants to make it big, you know? For me, I'd be like, I'll go to LA or New York. I don't know, or Chicago. I feel like
Sure.
those are, to me, or Austin, or Portland, they
Yeah.
seem like tattoo-y places. Maybe I'm just completely ignorant on the market in Denver, but
Sure.
tell me why you chose Denver.
So I kind of moved to Denver by accident. My best friend was moving there for like a doctorate program. I was very stuck in Hawaii and I was just ready to leave and she was going to Denver and I just said, fuck it, we're going to Denver, you know? And I just knew my skills were transferable enough to like make it out there. But yeah, I will say more than a lot of those cities, Denver's market for tattooing is insane.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of my friends have come from like LA, New York, like all over the place and have landed in Denver because they said that the market in Denver is just so much better than anywhere else.
And maybe do you think it's because there are less stipulations to get a license that people have more free reign to be creative, or what do you think?
No, I think that like when you think about like tattooing in LA, like you said, like there's a lot of like fine line and there's like shops that are well known that are like very traditional, and a lot of people don't go outside of that to like take a more artistic route. And I'm not speaking about all of LA or all of anywhere that I'm speaking about. I'm just saying like generalized kind of tattooing there. In bigger cities, there's just more saturation of artists and you kind of have to just play to the crowd at that point. You know, like you have to turn your career because this is what's doing well there. New York is the same place where it's so heavily saturated that you have to do what everyone else wants.
So you didn't want to compromise?
No, I don't want to compromise. I think that I've done it enough in my career, and I realized that the most important thing for my tattooing is artistic value. Like, I've heard it a bunch recently where a lot of people come to me and be like, I have never seen tattoos like yours. And that's what I want to hear, you know, and instead of like, oh, this was like the most perfect tiny tattoo. Like that's not going to excite me in any way, you know? I just want people to see my artistic value and appreciate what I bring into like an artistic space. Yeah.
You also were struggling with your Asianness identity. That was also a factor of moving away from Hawaii. So
Yeah.
expand upon
Yeah.
that.
So it's two things of like, when I was in Hawaii, because everyone is some type of Asian, or like I always felt kind of pushed out because I was never Asian enough, and especially being gay and trying to figure out who I was as a person, I just never felt like I belonged there because I just couldn't figure out where I did belong. And then when I left for Denver, because I was like, oh, you know, like every time I've gone to the mainland, I've very much liked the vibe. There are Asian people, but it's not like Asian people from back home, you know, like I just struggled with that identity so much. So when I went to Denver, I realized how white it was and how racist it actually is compared to back home, where no one is racist. The majority of people are Asian, so the one ethnicity that isn't loved as much as Asian people are the white people, you know what I mean? We call them like haoles, and you know, they're more tourists and like people that live in like Kailua and things like that. You just know where they kind of are. And so it was like almost coming to mainland America where racism is heavily prevalent. I realized that I do want to get in touch more with like where I was from, which is like Japan. I was born in Japan, and all these things that I thought I didn't want to define me. I think that it's such a huge part of who I am. I want to know that part more.
Do you feel like it was the scarcity of the Asian community in Denver that made you push towards becoming more Asian? And on the flip side, Hawaii is very, very predominantly Asian, that it made you less Asian. Is that how I'm getting at?
Yeah. I think that like
That's so interesting.
You know, you kind of try and fit in wherever you are.
Yeah.
And if for some reason you feel like you don't, you kind of go and search for where you do fit in. And I think in both instances, I realized even though I look Asian and I am Asian, I didn't bond with everything, like all the traditional values. Like Japan is still heavily misogynistic, and like just last year legalized tattooing at all. So like
because you'd have to like cover up your tattoos before you went to like a gym or something.
Yeah. Like bathhouse and any public bathhouses still like they don't allow you. Like it's just heavily frowned down upon. And my parents are very Japanese. Even though I'm adopted, I was adopted by a Japanese family. I always heard growing up like, oh, I just want you to like grow up, make money for your family, and marry a very nice Japanese girl. And for my parents to say that, you know, it pushed me farther away from that because that's not who I am. My mom especially speaks fluent Japanese. So like they've been around Japanese culture all their life, and they're very Japanese. But yeah, they wanted to adopt a Japanese baby more than anything. I think keeping the ethnicity within the same thing, I guess, is a huge thing for especially Japanese people. I'm not sure about other Asian cultures. But yeah, it just kind of like pushed me away from Japanese culture and wanting to be Asian. And, you know, I just never felt at home within myself, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because you were adopted, that there was already so much disconnect from who your biological family was.
Yeah, I've actually never felt that until like I got older. I think when my parents told me I was adopted and all that stuff, they made it very comfortable for me to ask them questions or like understand that like they're still my parents. And still to this day, you know, they're very much still my parents. I don't consider them not my parents ever. I guess adoption affected me later down the line because I had more abandonment issues of like why I was let go, why like someone didn't want me, you know, and I think that affected me more than like things that my parents actually did to help. Yeah,
tell me about your adoption story. It's quite an interesting one.
Yeah. So I was adopted from Japan.
Where in Japan were you born, by the way?
Okayama.
Okay.
It's like a little like rice paddy town. But my parents were offered actually a different child, and last minute their mom like took them back. So
good for that child.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if my mom had many miscarriages before even wanting to adopt, and did like in vitro and did all these things before even considering adoption. So like she had lost that many children as well as this other adoption like before even getting me.
Oh, I see.
So it was like very hard for her. And I think, you know, growing up, I was kind of thrown a lot of their hopes and dreams. I think they wish they had on all these other children onto me. And I think I fought that so hard because I knew from a very young age that I was gay, but I never said anything. I knew from a very young age that I was artistic and wanted to be different. And they had a plan for my life, my whole entire life, you know, and it didn't include me getting tattoos, me leaving Hawaii, me not being a doctor or a pharmacist or an engineer. And so I think that's why I hid it for so long too, because I didn't want to disappoint them after they went out of their way to adopt me, you know? I think my parents tried their best to allow me to grow, but there were restrictions and they wanted me to grow in their eyes a
Yes.
specific way.
Yeah.
And so from a very young age, I think they went into it pretty open and being like, you know, we're going to love our son either way. We're so grateful that we even have a son at this point. But then I think over the years and realizing maybe I was fighting them a little bit more at some age and they didn't envision that in their future. You know, I think that they kind of started to be more strict about a lot of things. Like, I was very, very sheltered growing up. I lived at the very top of the mountain. I didn't have very
Rapunzel.
many. Yeah, very much that. Like, I had to walk an hour and a half down to get to, like, the bottom hill of our bus stop. Like, I lived very much away from all of
Oh
my
my
friends.
gosh.
Yeah, and I didn't really have that many friends because I couldn't really play with them or go
And,
out.
yeah, you had no access to them.
Yeah, so yeah, I grew up very sheltered and I grew up very much alone, and I craved human affection and human, like, you know, like, back to me, why I got into tattooing, of like, I just wanted to be cool. Like, I wanted to be liked. And I think that, like, when you're at that such a moldable age and you're trying to figure out who you are, and a lot of it is driven by, like, the abandonment issues of being adopted and also being a teenager and also being gay and also, you know, all these other external factors, it just kind of added up into me just turning into, like, the epitome of, like, a rebel child, but I hid all of it as much as I could.
You talked about when your parents adopted you, you were not their first choice.
Yeah.
And you use the phrase second choice child.
Yeah.
Do you feel like over the years that, I don't want to say that identity, but does that identity still stick with you at times?
No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
think that it was just one of those things of, like, that's just kind of the reality of it. And I don't think that part I have ever held on to. I think that, like, my parents love me, love me, and they treat me like I'm their only son and that I have been their only son. So I don't think, like, that affected me at all. I think it's more of the actual adoption part of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to, you know, think of it as like a happy accident.
Yeah.
You know? But tell me the moment when, okay, now you're turning 25.
Yeah.
This is a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
You told your ex told your parents that you're gay, and you're also, I guess, coming out and telling them that you want to pursue tattooing.
Yeah.
So tell me about that year.
Okay, so if you're hiding any part of your life to anyone, it's so easy for you to, like, lie about who you are to everyone else. And so I really never felt like I was ever myself in those years, up to the point that, like, my parents knew who I was fully. And even after that, I was trying to be like, no, that's not the extent of it. Like, don't worry about it, you know? And I didn't have any visible tattoos. I didn't, like, try to make their lives, like, any harder. And I think it was just one of those things of, like, that year, me and my ex had been, like, fighting a bunch, and, you know, he could see that I wasn't myself and I wasn't the person that, like, he fell in love with, because he knew who I was when I didn't have to, like, hide everything, you know? And I think that he came out for me out of frustration. He was just like, you need to do it. And I just kept saying, no, you know?
And what prompted the tumultuous relationship to happen?
I had cheated in that relationship very early on, and, like, throughout it, as, like, in the beginning as well. And I just was so young. I got into it at 19. I didn't know myself. I was trying to look for something that I thought was tangible and wasn't, you know, like, still in therapy, I'm dealing with it, but, like...
And did you cheat was it out of insecurity?
Absolutely. I hadn't been in a relationship before that, and I think a lot of it, I just was trying to find myself in other people, and I could never do it, so I kept doing it. And I think that, like, I knew this person loved me, and I saw the way my parents loved me up to this point, which was, like, quote unquote unconditional, but they didn't know what I was doing past that, you know? So it was like their version of unconditional. And so I just assumed everyone would love me unconditionally. So I kind of just kept hiding it. And when it came out, it was just something that for the rest of our relationship, we couldn't get over it. But it was because I was also hiding this other part where I couldn't tell full truths about my life. Yeah.
And I mean, how did your parents react to all this news?
Oh, we didn't talk for like a year after that. It was just one of those things of like, I grew up where communication wasn't a huge thing. So now I over communicate with everyone, you know? I think that we never talked about really important stuff growing up. Like I never had the sex talk. I never had all these like pivotal moments where instead of them explaining, hey, like this is what could have gone wrong, you know, things like that. Like there was just no communication. And so I just grew up thinking that was the right way to do things. And it was not great. I think it was mainly because, so I got kicked out of private school and I was always kind of a disappointment to them. And so when you kind of add up all these little things over time of like, I got kicked out of private school, I'm now lying about my entire life. Like they were financially supporting me during that time because I couldn't be doing it by myself, you know? And they were just disappointed. They called me a liar and all these things, which I deserved. But for me, I wish they could have seen it wasn't against them or it wasn't because I'm a terrible person. It was because I was trying to figure out myself, you know? And so it was handled in a way that like I didn't appreciate, but also I couldn't ask for anything else because I did lie for a good amount of time in my life. So it was just hard. I think that going back to them now and having conversations about that, you know, it's a lot easier, but I think that I wish they had handled it more like a parent should or how I would have wanted my parents to. And yeah.
Would you categorize that as one of your dark periods in life?
Yeah, that was definitely actually like I don't think that was that dark for me. Like I think that I was still trying to figure out who I was. I blocked most of that out of my life, not because I didn't deal with it or can't speak about it. I think that it was just a pivotal moment more than like a dark time in my life. Yeah, I think the one dark time I'm thinking of, it was because of a death and it blew my life up and I didn't know that I would react like that because of a death. And so it was just, I wouldn't consider that period a dark time, I guess I should say.
So I guess during that year when you and your parents were not communicating with each other, what did you do in that time?
I went out and lived my life, you know? Like I started to figure out who I was, what I liked, because I didn't feel the guilt of answering to someone anymore. And I got my first visible tattoo and I was more open, like holding hands with my ex in public. And like before that, it got so bad that my cousin had found out that I was gay and I told her like, hey, don't say anything to my parents. And it was like during a time that she was dealing with the death of her dad. Like that's how much I was so worried about my parents knowing that I was gay, is like I didn't care for anyone else's like feelings or what they were going through. Like my problems were like the worst in the world, you know? So after that, when I realized it wasn't a big situation or a big deal, I kind of just started living for me. And, you know, still to this day, my motto is like, do you, whatever you want to do, as long as it doesn't affect me, I'm good with, you know?
The relationship with parents, it's so interesting to me because for me, I am so fortunate. I have always had an amazing relationship with my parents, and I have an older sister too. And I always joke about how the four of us were like a set meal. We go everywhere together, which a lot of people may find that it's really excessive. But I was like, my parents were incredibly strict growing up too. And, you know, I had a curfew. And even when I go back home now, it's like my parents are like, okay, be back by 10. And so, and I would never defy them. And so they're very stern, but they're very fun as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always had such an incredible relationship. And I think coming to the States, I realized that the family dynamics here are so different. I think also in Asia, it can be a bit more traditional, it can be more conservative, but because of that, like, life is more simple. And I think when it comes to American families, I know so many of my friends, like, oh yeah, my dad, like, my parents are separated, they're divorced, or one of my parents is no longer alive, and or it's like my parent like cheated on this my mom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like I have, you know, these, like, I have all these step siblings, and it's like crazy to hear. But that's just the norm here. And I know friends who continue to have tumultuous relationships with their parents, and I just want to ask, like, what do you think is your take on, because for me, I know it's like loving your parents, loving your family, that is so important to me. But when it comes into the position where you are like on very jagged terms, like very like fighting terms with your parents, like, when do you think is the moment where you have to step away from that relationship?
Ooh, that's hard to say. I think for me, I realized that I wasn't living my life and my truth and being who I was. And I think it started to affect my mental health more than anything. I think that I've always tried to fight to be myself, you know, and whatever that meant, whatever season. But I think that for me, walking away from my parents in that moment of like my ex coming out and all that stuff just taught me that, like, it's so hard. It's like you just have to put yourself first sometimes. And sometimes that doesn't include your blood relative, you know, and like, we're not blood, but like, you know, figuratively. And I chose to love myself more than I chose to love the approval of my parents. And that's when it was time for me to walk away. And I set boundaries, and it was like, hey, this is who I am. If you don't like it, I am your only son. And if you don't want me in your life because I'm this person, that's fine. We can go our separate ways, but I would like to be in your life, but we need to figure out how this can work out for both of us, you know? And I think any relationship is about compromise. And I think that going through it with your parents is kind of the biggest compromise, because neither of you really want to compromise on your beliefs because of the way they grew up, the way you believe you are. And the one thing they raised me right in so many ways, but the one thing I hold on to is they raised me to be like a very strong-willed individual. And if I set my mind to something, I'm gonna get it done. And I just set my mind on being myself, and it might not just have included them at that moment, or, you know, ever at that point, you know. So yeah, I think that that's the way that I went about it, or would go about it. And so it sucks to hear, but sometimes you just gotta put yourself first.
But you do feel like that separation allowed you to slowly repair your relationship with them?
Yeah, you know, I think that, like, setting boundaries and them realizing, like, oh, he is willing to walk away from us because he loves himself was a bigger eye-opener for them. Because I think they thought throughout my life, like, I would just need to be a very specific person for them. And walking away was just like, oh, no, we want him in our lives no matter who he is. Not the version we want him to be.
Yeah. So who reached out first after that year?
I actually don't know.
You don't remember?
Yeah, I think that it was like a kind of a mutual thing. Maybe I reached out. Maybe I think we would like send texts back and forth to each other that were like very small, and then we wouldn't respond, and then we'd respond, and then they wouldn't respond. You know, I think that it was just the right time to like come together, and we just kind of cried it out. We had arguments about it. We still argue about it sometimes, just because I think they don't have closure about certain things in that part of like why I lied, and they don't understand that like it was to protect myself. You know, we still go through it. We're still trying to,
I mean, it's gonna take a long time. It's like decades of compounded information.
Yeah, and I wish I did it sooner, but I also think that if it happened sooner, it might have been a lot worse, or if it happened later, it would have definitely been worse, you know. So I think it happened at the right time, and I just finally was able to like maybe not maturely, but actually be able to like talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine what I was like, I don't know. I have this like image of like you guys reuniting after such a long time, and I assume they see you with more tattoos on you.
Yeah.
What's going on in their minds right now?
I think that when they first saw it, they were confused. They thought that I was just trying to
Spite them?
spite them, rebel against them, do all these things. And, you know, still to this day, every time I go home and I have a new tattoo, they give me shit every single time. But that's also just a mom, you know? And
Your mom more than your dad?
well, I think it's like, yeah, my mom more than my dad. My dad just like looks at it and he's like, Jesus. And yeah. But I think that's like just parents in general, you know, like,
Yeah.
like especially parents that aren't like super open from the get-go, where they're like super supportive and, you know, they don't care what you do as long as you're happy. Yeah, every time they see a new tattoo, they just kind of think it's a joke, I guess I should say. Like, oh, this is not real. Like, oh, he's gonna change at some point. And I think that's the same thing that was going through their mind when they first saw it, you know. Like, oh, he's only getting these tattoos to spite us. He'll get over it. He'll remove all of it, and he'll get sick of it. But it's gonna get worse. I'm just gonna get more tattoos, you know.
How many do you have in total?
Oh, I cannot tell you. I have like one leg fully covered.
That's one full tattoo.
Yeah, this is just one. And then I have like my thighs. I have stuff on my butt. I have stuff on my stomach, both ribs, my chest, sleeve, lower sleeve, and then like face, and then face on this side, and my ears done. Yeah.
It's so interesting when I see someone that's just like covered with tattoos, because also it's like I refer to my own body and I don't have any tattoos.
Yeah.
When I see someone that's like the opposite, I'm like, wow, that's like very interesting to me, because and it like in the perspective of a more traditional Asian lens, or anyone who's just more traditional, like tattooing is very frowned upon, and especially in Japanese culture, it's like very much related to gangs and all that, and just in Asia in general. And I feel like the skin, at least for me, it feels like a very sacred organ, you know. It's like you have this one skin. So how does it feel just having your skin be very like painted? I just don't know what that feeling is like, you know. And like, what gave you that courage to want to put all of that stuff on your skin?
You know, I see tattooing more as an art than anything. You know, I grew up in Hawaii, where like Polynesian tribal is also a huge thing.
Yes.
And so I've never seen it as like this weird thing that maybe other Asian cultures feel more. Because I know a bunch of like my friends who are Asian, a lot of them don't actually have tattoos. And for me, I just love art so much that I just want it on me. And I think that's where it came from. I think that, as well as like, I think growing up feeling not popular and uglier and all these things that I personally felt growing up, I think that it really gave me the confidence that I needed to just be and exist as myself in this world, where I feel like people looked at me before, like maybe they weren't, maybe they were, but like people were looking at me before because, you know, I was small and I was scrawny and I just like was just this nerdy Asian kid that was like hanging out by himself, you know. And then like as I got more and more tattooed, and I give people the tattoos the same way of like, I feel like it's just like a piece of armor that you kind of put on, and then you just go out into the world, and now you have all this like piece of armor on you, and it just boosts your vision of yourself. Yeah. You know, like you're wearing a sick ass outfit and you're like, okay, like I look good, I'm gonna go out. That's exactly what I feel like most days. I mean, there's days where I feel like shit, but obviously like this makes me feel a lot more confident than I ever have been. Yeah.
And do you think you'll ever stop getting tattoos? I mean, I guess until you run out of space.
Sure. I actually hate getting tattooed, so probably, but I also love the art of it and the specific artist so much that I don't think I will. I think that it'll just kind of, one day I just won't be getting tattooed anymore, and I don't think it's like a conscious thing. I think it just, one day I'll just never get tattooed and I won't even think about it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you describe to me the sensation of getting a tattoo? Because I mean, growing up, you'd always be like, oh, I hear that getting a tattoo is so painful. But like, I don't know, has the technology changed over the years? Like, how is it like getting a tattoo now?
The technology has changed, but it hasn't changed the feeling of it. The best way I can describe it is like, you have the worst sunburn of your life and there's just a cat going at it with like razor sharp claws. That's exactly what it feels like. In some places you feel it, in some places you feel it less, more, you know. It's like a huge thing, like why acupuncture works, you know, like you just kind of like feel it more intensely and it affects certain parts more than others, and skin is thinner in certain areas. My ribs sucked, my neck sucked, the back of my knee ditch sucked. Those are kind of like the standout pieces for me that were just like, oh, I'm gonna die. I
also wanted to, this is a whole pivot, but you were talking about dark periods in your life, and I assume that in that period is what came out of it is you being sober, I would assume.
No, but do you want to cover me being sober or the dark period? Because I think they're two different things.
There's two different things. Okay, so let's talk about your decision to become sober.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I love Coke. I'm not gonna lie about that, and I love ecstasy. It's just kind of the drugs that I love. And I've done ecstasy from when I was like 17, 18 years old. I went to raves all the time, and growing up I didn't think it was a problem. I was in this industry that was like after school, but even in college, like people are partying like crazy, you know what I mean? And so like going into the tattoo industry where people are still partying like crazy, like I still have a lot of friends that like just do Coke and Molly on the weekend just for funsies, and or it's a Tuesday because they have Wednesday off, you know. They do drugs like crazy. And so like for me, I've had a Coke problem multiple times, where 2 times where friends needed to like stop me and be like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, this is, I've had an intervention when I was younger about this, and I let it go for a couple years, and then it came back even stronger when COVID hit, and I was like, all I'm doing is staying at home and drinking and doing Coke. Like, it's so fun. And, you know, and then I went even harder with the drugs because I had more adult money than I did when I was like at that age. And it started to really affect my relationships. It started to affect my work. And it started to affect just how I viewed myself. And I just realized that I was once again chasing something that I didn't need to chase. Like before it was men, and now it's like this high that I thought that I needed to have for my life to feel complete or for me to feel anything. And I just decided one day, like a really good friend called me, and she was like, hey, it was like a Tuesday and we were playing volleyball and you were just doing Coke on the sidelines. Like, are you okay? And I was like, oh, you know, I'm fine. And she's like, no, but are you really okay? And I was like, actually, no. And all this stuff just came out. And I realized that was what I was chasing. Like, all, like, to better all these things than, like, the Coke high, you know? And, yeah, from then on, I just decided it was the right thing for me. And it was really rough. But I've also never felt better in my life, and I've never felt more in tune with myself or like proud of who I am or all these things that I can stand by everything I say and do till this day, you know? Like I'm just in a very different place in life because of it. Yeah.
What was the rehabilitation process like?
For me, it was very much like I just needed to know that I could do the same things that I did while fucked up that I could do sober. And so the first 2 months was really hard because my body was coming off of like the drugs and the alcohol and all these things, and I just wanted it so bad. And I remember crying when I hit 30 days because I was only aiming for 30 days, and I was like, I want to go out and get drunk, and I want to go like do Coke in the bathroom and like, you know, go and rage all night. And then I cried because I realized that's not how we should be celebrating this, and that's how I wanted to celebrate. So the first 2 months were so difficult, and then after that days got easier and it kept going by, and 2 months turned into 6 months, 6 months turned into a year, and then all of a sudden a year passed by, and I just realized that I was so much happier, and I just kind of put the time aside from what was actually happening. Yeah.
And in conjunction, you said that you have a very strong will too. And so
Yeah.
you set your mind to this goal. And how long have you been sober for?
It's been like a year and some change, so I want to say like a year and like 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Good.
Yeah.
And you have absolutely no desire to go back.
Oh, believe me, like, I see my friends partying all the time. I'm like, oh, I remember that feeling so much. But it's just like, I realized everything else that comes after that feeling that I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm happy. I'm stoked. I get to wake up tomorrow not hungover, not fucked up. Like, I get to go. I actually go out more than most of my friends. And I just get to enjoy being there instead of stumbling into a bathroom and, doing what I did. Yeah.
And so you also don't drink now too?
I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm not even like California sober. I'm like sober.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what's California sober?
It's like weed and like mushrooms.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see.
Like everything natural you can do. Yeah. I know friends that are like California sober, and for me, that's just not the right thing because I did smoke weed for so long, and that's what led to me doing these other things, and I don't know moderation when it comes to that. So I just decide not to do it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this moment, like, do you think you're truly happy?
I think I'm finding happiness. I think that there's things in my life that I want to have that I don't currently have.
Such as
like a partner. I eventually want to have kids.
Oh my gosh. I'm like... I don't know if you heard my previous episode with my high school friend, but you heard us talking about a partner as well. I'm on the same boat.
Yeah. I just think I realized though that like, even though I want all these things and these things would make me happy, like I've found a happiness within myself that like I've never found ever.
So you have a sense of security of self.
Yeah. I spend most of my days alone now, and I enjoy that. And I enjoy spending it with my dog or like doing things I love to do. And even though I want a partner and like having that would bring happiness into my life, I don't need that to be happy, And so like, yeah, there's things like that like, if you were to ask me like, are you happy? Sure. I'm on that path, but like, could I be happier? Probably. Absolutely. I think we all could be happier.
Yeah. I've just been really learning about this recently because I think also growing up in an Asian society, we've always been taught to like serve other people. And I grew up in the church as well. And it's like very community based. And it's about like, putting others people first, which will always be my motto.
Yeah.
That I always try to live by that. I will prioritize my friends, my family. I will try my best to do that. But I realized that sometimes you have to fill your own cup first so that it can overflow and fill other people's as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that was a paradigm shift and I need to also take care of myself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're finding, the capacity to do that. Like, for example, like you're in LA, like right now you're about to attend a concert, like amazing.
To that, I will say the gays are going to love me for saying this, but like RuPaul says this quote of like, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anyone else?
Yeah.
And that's so true because if you don't love everything about yourself and even like the bad parts, you don't have to love it, but you have to accept it and you have to love how you deal with those situations or how you look at someone in those situations. And if you don't love all the parts of yourself, you're not gonna love someone else, and you don't have anyone else's cups to like fill because yours is not filled, And so I think that like loving yourself and putting yourself first is so much more important than like, and don't do it like selfishly. Don't be like, oh yeah, like I could have done something nice for someone, but I decided to just do something nice for me and like selfishly, but like I think being happy and like trying to put yourself first in those situations of like, God, like I'm feeling lost and I'm feeling like there's huge parts of myself that are missing. What can I do or anything like that? Like you just need to help yourself. And then through that, like you'll be able to, and you talked about this about like, I'm trying to put this in words that you have a disorder or something like that, or
for my previous episode.
Yeah,
I have a polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
So that was like that put me in a low season too.
Yeah.
Diagnosed at the beginning of the year, and it completely like changed my life. Really, it took a 180. I mean, it's really changed the way that I view nutrition. Viewed the way I see my mental health, and it put me in a really, really low spot because I felt like a stranger in my own body. Like I shared on the podcast, like I just couldn't recognize myself. I had so much cystic acne, which I didn't grow up with acne, and I never really had the empathy for people who have acne until I had it like all over my face. And for me, it's like I work from home and I have all these mirrors in my room, and just looking at myself, I just felt very dissociated from my own body. And I was like, this is crazy. So I mean, just talking about that.
Imagine like if you didn't put yourself first in that situation and figure out how to make yourself better, how to deal with this, how to emotionally cope with this.
Exactly.
Like you said, like other people are now reaching out to you being like, hey, I have that. Like, what are resources that I can do? Like, that's just such a small example of how like if you didn't do that yourself, you would not have been able to help literally anyone else.
That's a great example. And also thank you for listening to my episodes.
Absolutely.
When like a guest listens to my episodes, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But I totally agree. I think I've always had a sort of a rejective or aversive reaction when someone keeps saying the phrase like, put yourself first. I'm like, I don't know, I feel so selfish. But I think I know if they're coming from the right place, I think what they're trying to say is like, take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. And I think that's the phrase I'd like to hear more of, because, I think I also used to hide all of this because I was so ashamed of it. And also growing up in an Asian family, I think, and just like how my parents were raised too. And like back then they had it so much harder. When they had an issue, you don't talk about it, you just deal with it. Yeah. And so I always was very ashamed to even like talk about mental health or talk about any health related issues, because I always felt like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, I guess. Like if I look fine, then maybe I'm just over dramatizing the situation. And my parents are always, before I really, really took this seriously, my health journey, they were like, just like, stop complaining. I understand where she's coming from, and, I love her so much, but it was until I took my own agency and I like started getting blood work done. I have like the results on paper. It clearly showed that I had a lot of these symptoms. Like I had a progesterone that was close to zero. I had testosterone that was like so high. And that's just, everyone, like women, you also have testosterone, but like it was like through the roof. And it was also making me break out like crazy. And like I was just so fatigued all the time. And like I was breaking out too. And I like was super sluggish, and I realized that it was my food sensitivity to gluten and dairy. And so I don't eat it as much now. But I did realize that like once I started having certain foods, it would make me very tired. Absolutely. But I would not know about this if I, didn't spend my own money and wanted to take care of myself and like get the blood work done. And then it was until I showed all of this information to my parents, they were like, now they're like really supportive, I mean,
Asian parents love seeing things on paper, if anything, by an actual doctor's signature, if I know anything. So, I think that like what you said of like putting yourself first or like taking care of yourself before you take care of other people is so important. And I think, that goes back to every part of my life that we've talked about today, of like hiding things and like my journey with my parents and all these things. I think I've just realized that my mental health, my everything comes before anyone else's, because I'm not going to be able to actually help anyone else if I'm at a low point in my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
well, I mean, thank you for bringing that up. I'm every time when someone talks about like women's health, I'm like, my ears perk up. I'm like, ooh, okay, here.
Yeah.
So that was super fun. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a good way to end our conversation.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, is there anything else you'd like to share? Or, I mean, what plans do you have in the works?
Ooh, no plans at the moment. I think that like I'm just trying to be happy and take life as it comes and not be too worried if something doesn't work out. I think that's a big part of like my strong will doesn't allow that, so we're trying to let that happen. I just want to spread joy to everyone in my way of like you gotta just work on yourself a little bit first, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. yeah, and love tattooing. I'm so glad I got to talk about that. And
Yeah.
we went pretty deep in my family, but you know, I appreciate you talking to me and like taking time to like have these conversations that I don't think I've ever vocalized a lot of it, you know? And for me, it was very therapeutic, you know? And I'm sure that like anyone who's watching this, you know, if you take away anything from me, it's just kind of like live your life until someone else affects it and then deal with that, but just live your life for you. Yeah.
But in the meantime, you're still booked and busy?
Booked and busy. We're doing our best. Summer months slow down just because of like how hot it is and everyone wants to be outside and they're sweating, but that's just, you know, I tattooed in Hawaii where everyone wants to be at the beach all the time, so it's just something I'm used to, and then it picks up again, and then we just have seasons of tattooing is what happens. Yeah.
Well, Jawn, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
Happy
you.
Hour. Thank you so much for reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And now we're just sitting on a couch in LA,
Yeah.
chatting away.
Living life, you know?
All right. Well, enjoy your Blackpink concert.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.